And it gives me great pleasure to welcome back former Flin Flon Bomber voice, a former member of the CFAR 590 archive staff, Dennis Bayak, who's gone on to, be the play-by-play voice for a number of NHL teams, most recently with the Winnipeg Jets. Dennis, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here this afternoon.
Well, you know what? It is busy, and I sometimes wish I was busy doing my regular job, but that's not the case. But so far, Rob, we've been able to stay busy enough. We talk a lot of hockey on the radio station here in Winnipeg. I was in Dawson Creek on the weekend doing an event for TSN, the Under-18 Girls Championship. So we've been busy, and you stay on top of things, trying to see whether this thing is going to get solved or isn't going to get solved. But yeah, it's nice to be back and talk to the people of Flin Flon, where many years ago my career did get started.
Yes, it did, originally from Winnipeg Osis. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you were at CFAR, between 70 and 73, is that correct?
70 and 72. I think I left in the fall of 72, if my memory serves me right. But I was there for 2 years. I started in the fall of 70, and I think left in the fall of 72 for Saskatoon. So it's interesting how things work. Patty Ginnell, who has passed on, was the coach of the Flin Flon Bombers when I was there. And then when I moved to Saskatoon, Patty went to Victoria, bought the Victoria Cougars, and because of my association with them in Flin Flon, phoned me and said, I would like you to come and work for me in Victoria. So I spent 2 years in Saskatoon and then went off to Victoria, and eventually came back to Saskatoon and kind of went from there. So it's amazing the people that you meet, and I still relay that story sometimes to young people when I talk at schools, journalism classes or whatever, that just always keep tabs on the people that you meet.
You're right, that is a very interesting story. Matter of fact, and I've talked to you a number of times, and I believe it's the first time I'd heard that one. It's a special day for CFAR today, Dennis. You and I were talking a little bit yesterday, leading up to the conversation here this afternoon. CFAR's 75th birthday today. Did you ever think when you left in 72 that you'd still have as strong a connection to the radio station and to this community?
Well, you know what? That's back to kind of what we touched on a minute ago. You just never know what paths you will go down as your career takes off. Go back to when I started, we were still in the old station downtown, where you had to walk up the steps to get into the radio station. So, and then in my time there, we moved to the new location that I think you're still at. So, that happened, but it was a great time in Flin Flon. I really enjoyed my 2 years there, and again, I tell young people, don't be afraid to go to a smaller market and learn. You can make mistakes, but more importantly, Rob, I think what you do in a small market is you really become part of the community, and I think that's most of my memories from Flin Flon are exactly that. The people that I met, the people that I have bumped into in years since. Raccoon Carney, by the way, who was there after me, interestingly enough, is another alumnus from CFAR, is at the radio station here in Winnipeg that I do some work for. So, again, you talk about crossing paths. But I met so many really good people in Victoria, in Flin Flon, and Jay Letty was our manager at that time, and went through some rough spots with me and helped me and worked with me. And, I owe a lot of credit to everybody that was there back then.
And a few guys that are still, pretty important in the modern day running of the radio station, Joe McCormick. I know you remember him. He remembers you vividly from that from that time period.
Joe McCormick, John Poulin, who was there when I was there, Andy Stewart, who was a salesman. I'm sure some of these people have moved on. Doug O'Brien was the manager, and so a lot of names. But it's one of those markets where you saw a lot of people kind of come and go, and some of them quicker than others. And a gentleman by the name of Gary Roberts, not the hockey player, but his on-air name was Gary Roberts. His off-air name is Reg Johns, has gone on to become, he's semi-retired now, but went on to become one of the country's great programmers and consultants, and is really deep into the radio business. So I think Flin Flon CFAR should really be proud of some of the people that have gone through those doors.
I think you're absolutely right. And like you said, it was an interesting time period because, a lot of people did come and go, but then some people stayed as well. You mentioned Andy Stewart has made a home here in the community. Doug O'Brien, who officially took over the radio station for his own in 1982. He and his family have been here ever since then. So as much as we've seen people come and go, like you mentioned, Flin Flon is such a great community. Some people just wanted to be a part of it to even past their careers.
Well, it'll always be special to me because that's where I got to fulfill my dream, and that was to do hockey play-by-play. It's something that I wanted to do ever since I was a kid. When we played ball hockey, I was the goaltender and the play-by-play guy. I might have been better off financially if I had become a better goaltender than a play-by-play guy, but that's not the way it worked out. But that was always what I wanted to do. I always wanted to do hockey play-by-play, and got the opportunity in Flin Flon when I got there. A gentleman by the name of Bruce Ketty, who a lot of people will remember from his newspaper days, who I actually ran into a number of times at a coffee shop in downtown Winnipeg last winter. He was doing play-by-play when I got there, and then eventually I got the opportunity and ran with it. And those days it was much different how you set up for a play-by-play road broadcast than what it is now. But the Bombers were very much a part of the city and still are, and that's good to see the success that they're having. But, the players that went through that organization, Flin Flon will always be remembered for that as well.
And it's funny, you mentioned Bruce Ketty. That's a guy that certainly was a big part of the history of the team, history of the radio station. I know that he was able to help out a number of people throughout the years as well, was a very important part of the CFAR broadcast from yesteryear. Dennis Bayak, by the way, former Flin Flon Bomber voice, now the voice of the Winnipeg Jets, is our guest here today as we commemorate CFAR's 75th anniversary. Got to ask you a couple quick questions, Dennis, before we wrap it up today. Would you be the play-by-play guy today you are without your start at CFAR?
Absolutely not. Again, I touched on this earlier. It's a market where you see people come and go. Credit to the people that have stayed there. I think that's a credit to the organization, credit to the city, a credit to everybody. But I was allowed to make some mistakes. I go back and think back now to some of the uneducated opinions that I put out on the airwaves, and I wonder why somebody a little more mature than myself didn't come up and whoop me upside the head and tell me you can't say that. But you know what? You learn from your mistakes. I think that's the biggest thing that we all need to do. But there is no doubt. And again, when I was there was a strike at the mine there. And the station had to lay somebody off because revenues were becoming tighter to come by. And I was the newest guy on the block, and I was supposed to be sent down the road. They were trying to find someplace for me to go, and as it turns out, in the meantime, somebody else left, and I got to stay, and it kind of went from there. But I remember my very first play-by-play game. It was the Brandon Wheat Kings and the Flin Flon Bombers, and the road trips that we had from there. But there's no doubt, not just as a hockey broadcaster, Rob, but as a person understanding the game of hockey, I learned a lot from Patty Gunnell, and I learned a lot from some of the other fine folks that were on the Flin Flon Bomber board at that time that made me feel very part of the organization. And I thank them for that because when they had an event, I was invited to it, and I learned a lot about the game of hockey and how to deal with people at that time.
Yes, it's a wonderful organization, and like you and I also talked about yesterday, the team doing very well this year. Now 17-4, have yet to lose a game at the Whitney Forum so far this year, Dennis. I'm sure you remember the great times at the Whitney Forum. They didn't lose a lot back then either.
Do the fans still jump on the visiting team dressing room?
No, that doesn't happen anymore.
Well, there you go. That was always part of coming to Flin Flon. And again, I'll take you back to the days when it was wire mesh and it was just part ways around the corner boards, and there was very easy access for fans to players in the penalty box and when they were getting ready for face-offs and those sorts of things. But it's a great building, and there's a lot of hockey players that came through the Western Hockey League and now the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League that have memories, some fond, some not so fond, of the Whitney Forum. And it's nice to see the Bombers. I was talking to Kim Davis the other day on a radio interview, who is an ex-Flin Flon Bomber and now president of the Manitoba Junior Hockey League, and we were reminiscing about whether Flin Flon would ever come back into the Manitoba Junior League, and he says no. He says they were having too much success in the Saskatchewan Junior League, and the Saskatchewan Junior League very much enjoys having them there. But it's a great market, and to everyone that is still there from when I was there, hello, and very much a congratulations to everyone at the station for what everyone has accomplished.
Dennis, always good to catch up with you, my friend. Thanks a lot again for taking time to speak with us here this afternoon.
Thanks for contacting me. It's, as I said off the top, CFAR and Flin Flon will always have a very special spot in my heart because I think I've been very blessed with the career that I have had, and that's where it all got going.